morning. How are you, Bede? How are you doing today?
I'm fine. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Bede. Today we are going to talk about arms and armor from different Ukrainian museums. I was invited by Ministry of Defense and University of Kyiv and Center of Historical Arms Research. These three organizations always organize different events in Ukraine. So I was there a couple of times. I was there before the change happened when Yanukovych was still president. We were there during the week when Yanukovych fell because there was a conference, so we could see
Hmm.
experience that. And even after that,
Very
I
exciting.
traveled to Ukraine many times. And result of it, so in the east, west, south, north, are these museums. Some of them we are going to see today. We are not going to make it every one of them today, but many of them today. So I'm really happy to share this with you and with our viewers. Perfect. Perfect. So these are some of these artifacts we are going to see. Let me just start with the first one, which is in Kiev, or as they call it now, Kiev Military History Museum of Ukraine. Of course, we are not going to see all of artifacts there because they have also lots of them from the Second World
Yeah,
War.
it's
But
it's a big museum.
yes, very big, very big. So this
Ah.
is and Scythian armor
Hmm.
excavated. Just one thing to wanted to say: there are two countries where you can find lots of these things of Scythians. One of them is Russia. One of them is Ukraine. And interestingly, when you go to Russian museums, you can see many Akhenakis, Scythian ones, right?
Hmm.
But you can find many more in Ukraine. Pete, if I tell you there are thousands of them, it's unbelievable. And we are going to see
It,
some of
it
them here, right?
it makes good sense because the center of the when the Scythians were at the peak of their power,
Yes,
it was centered in what's now Ukraine
yes,
and the southwestern part of what's now Russia.
yes,
But of course, they didn't exist then. So this is what the Scythians want. This is patinaed bronze.
yes.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I've seen a few things on Scythian scale armor. It's really, how can I put this? It's a bit minimalist in the sense that they've reduced everything that you've got to drill holes or punch holes or anything, but it still comes out really strong.
Yes.
It's like they've got. All, I know this is not how it happened. It evolved through various village smiths making it various ways, but it's as though they thought, how can we make this really effective but easy to manufacture? And they did. And if you look at books written before 1950, they don't mention the Scythians wearing armor at all. It wasn't until people started digging up the tombs and they said, gee, there's a lot of armor there.
Yes,
And then they thought, oh, and then they looked at the gold ewers and things and thought, oh, wait a minute, maybe that's armor they're showing there. Of
yes,
course, it was.
yes. And the curator there, when he was a very kind person, he told me that what they show it, is very interesting in this museum because they made sure where it was excavated, even the earth and the clay underneath, they tried to imitate exactly where
Ah,
they excavated this armor. Isn't it beautiful?
it really gives you the feeling that you've just walked in after they've cleaned all the dirt off.
Exactly.
And
That's what they did. Really, it is really beautiful.
I think it's really important for members of the general public like us to see things in this way so we know that it didn't come out like on a mannequin, everything was perfect. Because
Yes.
you've got to give credit to the archaeologists and the curators in the museum for working out what this flat piece of bits of metal is when you put it together into an armor or
Yes.
into costume or whatever. It's a really skilled job, and
Let us
there's
dissect it for us.
centuries. Yeah,
Excuse me. Just explain this part to our viewers.
this is a scale based helmet, I'm guessing.
Yes, it is.
The
Yes.
the dome of the helmet is made of small scales arranged. So if looking from the bottom concentrically, they overlap from top to bottom.
Yes.
Uh, they look quite small. There's also bigger pieces in there as well,
Hmm.
which may represent something underneath the scales.
Hmm.
See, it's hard to tell when you're just looking at a photograph, but this is a thing that you see in early Scythian armor is these scale helmets where the dome of the helmet is, or the, like the crown of the helmet is made of individual scales sewn onto a backing. Now, one of the reasons you do this is because you are good at manufacturing scales, so therefore why not? There are Scythian helmets that are quite early that are solid bronze um, headpieces. So it's not that they couldn't do something else. It's that they like this. They like the look of it. Um, if you have a kind of padded cap sewn into maybe a canvasy kind of thing, and then you've got the scales sewn onto that. I mean, in modern times, when we're reenacting, we use rivets and all kinds of things, but they didn't do that in the old days. Everything was sewn together because it's easier.
Just one thing, Dee.
Just
Could you explain the difference between scale armor and lamellar armor? I know we explained it on this channel, but for those who haven't watched our
Oh
earlier
no,
episodes.
I think it's a good idea to reiterate it each time we look at it because somebody's coming in for the first time, they don't know what we're talking about. So scale armor is when you take small pieces of metal. Now they could be rectangular, they could be square, they could have rounded lower parts, they could have indented edges, any kind of complexity, and you sew it to a backing. So, for instance, you make a coat and then you sew rows of scales onto that to make an armor. Lamellar armor, which I know people quote things as being lamellar armor, but in a technical sense, there's no lamellar armor at this period because all armor is sewn to a backing. And lamellar armor is where the rows of scales are attached to each other, and then row by row they're attached together by lacing. So let's see if I can attach this. I don't have any scale armor laying around, but I do have some lamellar.
Mhm.
So lamellar armor, uh, it's 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 rows that are free floating. They don't have any kind of backing.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a different concept. It uses similar shaped pieces, but it's conceptually different. So there's something halfway between lamellar and scale. The Romans made armor like this, and you see it in a few other areas where you make scale and you attach it to itself, but it's not like this. A lamellar generally has a degree of flexibility,
Yes.
uh, whereas scale is much more rigid. And when you attach rows of scales together, they're often have no flexibility at all. It's like making a jigsaw puzzle armor that is totally rigid. It's got a bit of flexibility, but nothing like lamellar. I think that some people, when they're trying to define these things, they say, "Oh, if it's a rectangular scale, it's lamellar. If it's a square or rounded bottom scale, if it's a short scale, it's scale." But that's not precise enough to identify armors when you find them in the ground or you see them in paintings or you, if you're really lucky, you see them in museums. I think that the major difference is the lamellar armor doesn't have a lining, and if there is a lining, it's a coat you're wearing under it. Whereas a scale armor, the lining is an integral part of the whole suit of armor because it's what supports the scales.
Yes.
We see in modern reproductions, and even some like Karasina armors from Poland in the 17th, 18th century, a type of scale where the scales are very loosely attached. They flip up and flip down. They don't. They're basically next to each other and imbricated like roof tiles.
Yes.
That's kind of a degenerate form. Roman scale, for instance, they were very strongly attached to each other side to side, and they overlap partially. When you look at this, I mean, these pictures, you can see how dense, how strong the armor is.
Yes.
It's not
To
this kind
his
of floppy,
right side
feathery type.
beat, do you see his thigh
Mhm.
protections? These are his thigh protections, and this was the body
Yeah,
armor. And next to his
yeah,
thigh protection, do you see Akanakis? Do you see that?
yeah, a beautiful one. All
The-
ironwork too.
yes. And a knife. Look at this.
You might call that a card if you were in Iran, wouldn't you?
Yes, exactly. What
That's
card would
very
it
card-like. But then,
be?
I mean, the Scythian language is of the Indo-Iranian branch
Yes.
of Indo-European, so it's
Beat,
not
when I looked
surprising.
at it, it reminded me, look how old this design is.
Oh yeah, and the reason that it survived so long is it's so practical.
Yes.
I mean, a basic knife is a basic knife. It does all knife-like things. And
Beat,
the
please take a look
Akanakis,
at here. It has this typical bolster even.
oh really? Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. Yes.
Oh yeah. I mean, there'd
Unbelievable.
be you could take that to a knife maker in Isfahan and go, oh yeah, I can make one of those. We make those all
Yes,
the time.
exactly.
And but I mean, it's lovely that the sword in the other picture is also, I mean, obviously it's corroded and everything like that, but you can see the form,
Yeah.
double edged, straight,
Yeah.
short. I
Yeah.
mean, they're rarely, well, if you look at artistic representations, they are rarely longer than from the hip to the thigh of the person wearing them.
And
Usually
look
worn
at
on the
here,
right
Beat.
side,
Look at here, Beat.
arrowheads.
Yes.
It's interesting they had such efficient armor-piercing arrowheads. For a long time, people said, why are their arrowheads so small and so triangular? And well, it's because they were all wearing armor. Or not all of them, but the rich people were wearing armor.
Yeah.
You make your weapons for the opponent that you're going to fight. You don't make a weapon that will shoot through brick walls if you don't have brick walls to shoot through.
Exactly.
And of course, I mean, this is everything changes through time as people develop better armor,
Mhm.
or they develop, they don't stand still to get shot, which is an important thing. I mean, if you've got a really dense group of infantry with spears only, they really can't get out of the way
Yeah.
if people are shooting arrows at them. Or in say, the time of the Macedonians and the Greeks, throwing rocks at them with slings.
Yes.
There's the target defines
Yes.
the type of point and the type of arrow and the type of bow you shoot.
And Beat, different sizes of scale, right?
Yeah, this is a really interesting thing because in surviving scale armors and lamellar armors as well, it's quite normal to have different sizes of scale. And I think the reason is because they're made as, I mean, the people making the scales, it may have been in little workshops and apprentices and just hammering holes in little pieces of metal and that. But when you didn't go to a shop and say, oh, I'll have that suit of armor over there,
Yes, of
because there were
course.
no shops and there were no pre-assembled armors, unless they're in an arsenal. What you did was you went to the person who made armor and said, I want an armor to fit me. And they would put the scales to the parts of the body where you needed more flexibility, smaller scales where your body doesn't move much, like further down, bigger scales.
Yes.
So it's all utilitarian. It's all designed to make
Yes.
the best use of the materials they had. They did that with mail. I
Yes.
mean, normally when you see a male shirt, particularly a reproduction one, they'll all be the same size rings. But if you look at old ones,
Yes. All different.
they often had smaller rings in the skirts,
Yes.
bigger rings in the arms, because
Yes.
that's a really dangerous part where you get hit a lot. Also across the chest, often bigger rings.
Yes.
So we think in terms of mass production, and these were mass produced in a way, but they were designed for individual bodies.
Yes. Yes.
So when we make them, I don't think they're as comfortable as the originals because we don't know how to fit these things properly. Look, this is really good pictures of it. You can see the holes in the scales. which we used to connect them together and lace them to the backing.
Bead, look, two different materials, right?
Yeah, well, is the dark blue one iron
I
and
think
the
so,
greenish
yes.
one bronze?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
that makes sense because the Scythians, while they produced bronze arrowheads right into the, I think, first century CE, they were using iron swords from maybe the 6th to 7th century BCE, but
Yes,
they had bronze armor. So, I mean, you would say to yourself, well, surely iron swords cut through bronze armor, but no, the iron at the time wasn't really steel. It was
exactly.
it was maybe low carbon steel. Bronze, if it's properly made, has got a lot of resistance
A lot.
against cutting. And look at the ancient Greeks; they wore bronze cuirasses,
Yes, they did.
which were quite effective for the type of warfare they pursued. And
Absolutely.
I mean, if you believe some modern reenactors, the bronze cuirasses were quite comfortable to wear,
Yes.
and they gave you enough protection against the weapons and the way the weapons were used at the time. And we've got to look at it this way: the possibility that you're making iron scales, because at the time, like in the 5th century BCE, for instance, iron was technically cheaper. The problem with iron was it was not renewable because cast iron hadn't been invented. Well, it had been in China, but in Western Europe, they didn't get cast iron for a long time. So when your iron bits get rusty and deformed and everything, they throw them away. When your bronze bits get deformed or bent or torn, you just put them in a crucible, remelt them, and cast them into something else. So even though bronze was more expensive, it was more recyclable, whereas iron, up to a certain point, I mean, later on things changed. There's a reason why you don't find many Tang Dynasty swords from China. It's because in the Tang Dynasty, they already knew how to cast iron, so they could melt it all down
Yes.
and turn it into ingots of iron and then turn it back into steel or whatever they like. It's a technological difference. In the ancient world, in the West, they were good at bronze, but maybe their iron wasn't, certainly until the Roman Empire, not as high quality. You really get the impression of the density of the scales from these photographs, because little
Unbelievable.
scales. I was emailing with somebody really smart at the Metropolitan Museum of Art once, and asked them about some leather scales that they had a complete leather cuirass from the Scythian period. It's on the Metropolitan Museum of Art website, and he sent me the dimensions of the scales, and I mean they're not. They're basically the last two joints of my little finger wide and long. They can be really tiny, and there's a really large number of them. And the visual effect of somebody wearing an armor like that is stunning. If
Yes.
you want to get an impression, look at the Roman reenactors that make a lorica squamata in brass,
Yes.
and it's just so impressive to look at.
Absolutely. So this is this one. You can have a better picture for the larger scale.
Yeah, you can see how they've made them larger. Particularly, this is around the torso,
Yes.
and some historians used to say, "Oh, they couldn't make bigger pieces; smaller pieces are easier to make, and things like that." I think that's an oversimplification.
Yes.
I think they actually chose what size scales to make, as we were talking
Absolutely.
before, to optimize the function of the armor.
Yes. Absolutely. Okay, and now next to it, they made a reproduction of the armor based on its
Mm.
dimensions they had it there.
Yeah, that does look very impressive, doesn't it?
It does, really. Yes, they did that.
And the fact that his clothes are studded with little pieces that in the original would have been basically gold foil,
Yes.
24 karat gold foil sewn onto his clothes, just to let you know how rich he was. We come back to this when we look at this ancient stuff, that there was a big degree of showing off in your
Yes.
armor
Yes.
and your clothing. And the Scythians were renowned for the amount of gold they had, and excavations over the last 200 or 300 years have proved they had a lot of gold. This is, I'm assuming that's a shield against the wall there,
Yes, that's the shield.
because I think there was something found at Soloka, which had men fighting on horseback and on foot, and they had shields that were covered in scales.
Yes,
Because you could do that. You could make a wooden frame
yes,
with reinforcing strips, and then put a piece of leather over it that you've sewn the scales to, and you would get, instead of having to beat out a huge piece of bronze, which the Greeks did. Let's be honest, they liked that kind of work. You could just make it from small scales, and if it got damaged, instead of having to get a specific type of blacksmith or bronzesmith or whatever to come and rehammer it or weld it or whatever, you could just get some more scales and sew them back into where the holes were. I
yes.
think this is the ultimate in do-it-yourself armor, in the sense that quite a few people would have had enough skill to repair one of these. You don't have to have a dedicated armorer. You needed somebody to fix your sword, but I think your armor was within limits, within, what you knew you could fix it, because people were used to sewing things together, or maybe their wives were used to sewing things together, because these were fairly dramatically segregated societies.
Yes.
Go a bit further east to the Sarmatians, and all of a sudden, your wife might be fighting in battle next to you because they had a slightly different society. Hence, they find warrior women burials, and I think they found a few from the Scythian period as well, which suggests that it's not gender equality; it's probably more likely gender exploitation. But the fact that women were taking part in battle occasionally was moving from east to west. And of course, you get the stories about the Amazons from
Yes,
the
absolutely.
Greeks, and possibly
Yes,
ultimately based on that, though it's hard to say, because the Amazon stories are really old and they
yes,
may not be based on anything real.
yes. And look at the scabbard of the Akanakis. The reproduction is also
Oh yeah, these are the kind of quick draw
yes,
um, Western Holstein sword
yes,
scabbards. They always wore them on the right,
yes,
despite the AI art you see on the internet all the time, where they're everywhere. Um, they were short enough to draw quickly back and then stab quickly forward.
yes.
Um, they were always strongly made. There were quite small ones. I think there's been a few excavations in Iran of quite small ones.
Yes.
But the ones in, say, the carvings at Persepolis look just like this.
Just like this, exactly. Just like this.
So, yeah, it's a widespread design. But look at how solid that armor looks. I mean,
Yeah.
it's flexible enough when you're wearing it, but a slash or even a stab is hard to penetrate. We keep thinking of these later armors where the scales will lift right up, but those scales are attached to each other.
Yes.
So you have to lift a whole row. You can't just lift one or two scales.
Yes.
It's just because by accident the scale armors people saw were these much later Polish armors, which were 17th century. I mean, it's a different
You're going
technology
to
here.
see them today. The
Oh,
later.
good.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
it's really amazing that the
Yes.
the Poles kind of got a, what can I call it? A nostalgic feel for these step warriors in the 16th, 17th,
But
18th
I think
centuries.
we talked about it. Many Polish
Yeah,
collectors always contact me and they always buy the books. And they always say,
yeah.
we Polish are brothers of Iranians. There is such a sentiment in Poland because they
There,
have
well,
yeah,
yeah, because I think it was called Sarmaticism,
exactly.
where they felt that their nobility in that and their people had strong links with the Sarmatians, which, historically Sarmatians moved into the Western Europe and North and South. So there's possibly a good reason for that.
Yes.
But it's one of those things where cultures develop this romantic attachment,
Yes.
and he produces all this great artwork.
Yes, it
I mean,
does. It does.
the 17th century Polish armors are beautiful, and you don't want to discourage them from that. Yeah, isn't that a beautiful?
Yes.
So the originals were like a wooden scabbard overlain by requisite gold
Go.
sheets,
We have
and
In Ukraine and in Russia, lots of excavated golden scabbards of
yeah,
Akhenaten.
there must have been an enormous amount of gold there,
Yeah. They
and
made a
they
good
really.
reproduction of it, didn't they? Really
Yeah,
nice.
well, the thing is that we think of gold for how valuable it is, but they may have they may have thought of how easy to work gold is and how it doesn't tarnish, so it
Yes.
stays bright and yellow its whole life and your life and your grandfather's, your grandchildren's life or whatever. So it's at that stage, it's a practical as well as a beautiful material.
It's really beautiful. So this is this. I mean, I put a description. They put it here. I mean, that's what they assumed that it was this
Yeah.
guy. Ate, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's famous. I think there's coins with his name on them written in Greek.
Yes.
Um, the what can I say? We don't know what word they called uh their kings. It certainly wasn't Tsar, because if you believe modern etymology, Tsar comes from Caesar, and it would be very hard to have someone called after Caesar 300 years before he was born. So, uh, though there is I did see an argument once in a Russian publication that Tsar actually came from the Persian Tsar,
Yeah.
as in Serdar,
Yes.
and that it actually just meant leader,
Leader.
and that it became associated with Kaiser, Caesar, whatever. And then, of course, the conventions of spelling in Polish and Russian made it even more
Yes.
likely to be mixed up. But I think it's worthwhile having multiple ways of looking at this.
Yes. So let's move on. We are going. Excuse me. We are going to see more items here now. Oh, sorry. Now look at the excavated Akanakis here bit.
Oh yeah, look at them.
Different types, different pommels.
Yeah, even antenna pommels that you
Yes.
see from the middle to late Bronze Age. So
All
there's
from
kind of
Scythian graves.
yeah,
Look at them.
enormous um, continuity with previous cultures, but in their own unique style.
Yes.
So got a mixture of swords here. Um,
Yeah.
some longer, some shorter. There was the Sarmatians definitely used long swords as well as Akanakis.
Yes.
Um, I often wonder there was in the middle, maybe early Bronze Age, they made very long swords
Hmm.
that were clearly only capable of stabbing. You couldn't really cut with them because the way the handles were attached, they wouldn't take strain that way. Then we get these, which are a little bit shorter than a gladius.
Yes.
So that they're halfway between a large dagger and a short sword. Two-edged, really nice grips. You get a really solid
Yes.
hold on your sword. Very easy to draw quickly. In the say Persepolis, in the carved reliefs there, they
Mhm.
always show a little strap at the bottom of the scabbard that goes around your thighs, like Western holsters for cowboys, to stop it moving around. This was a thing that was unique to Akanakis. It meant two things. You had to have your robe had to be short enough that you could do that. If it was too long, everything would get tangled up. And the Scythians, from excavated material, that their overgarments weren't particularly long. They're probably mid thigh to knee length, but
Yes.
they wore trousers.
Yes. So let us move
Um,
and see more. Bede, look.
oh yeah, this is great stuff, isn't it?
Look at the arrowheads, Bede.
Yeah, these are quite long, narrow ones for
Yeah.
Scythian type arrows.
Yes.
Uh, they're nearly, well, there is a theory based on some molds that they found in Ukraine and possibly Russia as well, that when they cast these, they cast them in, they didn't make 3 or 4 arrowheads at a time. They had molds that would make 3 arrowheads at once, but they think these molds were used for casting wax. And then you would attach the wax to casting trees and you'd cast, 100 arrowheads at a time. They found um, burials with thousands of arrowheads in them. So they made them at a large scale. And the molds that they found suggest that when you cast the arrows, whether the wax or the bronze, you made 3 at a time. The one at either end, or the two, one at either end, had 3 blades, and the one in the middle had 2 blades. So you would expect to find more 3-bladed than 2-bladed, which you really do. The Russian and Ukrainian archaeologists have done a lot of work on categorizing these.
Yes.
So they've divided them by how long the blades are, how many blades, how
Yes.
thick, all that kind of stuff. Now,
Yes.
my experience with them, I've got a few originals, but from further east, like in Turkmenistan and places like that, um, the ones I have are all triangular in section, with 3 blades. Sometimes they're quite long, like these.
Mm.
I've got a few that are the shorter type with the bigger blades.
Yeah.
Uh, they just made so many of them, and
Yes.
they've
I mean,
found.
interestingly, 2, 3 years ago, I wrote for an academic journal in Ukraine. I compared Persian Akanakis during Achaemenid period, which I analyzed and published. I mean, some of them found in Persepolis excavation. You see that in my book, Arms and Armor from Iran. I
Yeah,
compared
yeah.
them, and some of the parts of Akanakis and some Akanakis Achaemenid in the world, mostly in Iran, compared them to Scythian. Now, the interesting thing is, there were few Persian Akanakis, which I published in my article. Well, 2, 3 years ago, I published. I will put the link here. Compared to thousands of Ukrainian
Yeah.
and Russians. So the main question comes up. What happened to Achaemenid Persian Akanakis?
I think the bronze ones were melted down and turned into spearheads or whatever when they went out of fashion.
Yeah.
Bronze was valuable. And you only have to look at, say, the giant Parthian figure from Shami.
Yeah.
They like making bronze statues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and Elam, well before any of this is going on, was
Yeah.
casting huge bronze statues
Huge.
with,
Yes.
a ton of bronze per statue. So bronze would have been valuable, and Akanakis would have got recycled once they were not the sword that most people carried. The other thing is, there aren't a lot of warrior burials in the Achaemenid period because it
Yes.
was a much more settled state.
Yes. Yes.
Whereas in the areas where the Scythians were dominant,
Yes.
it was a warrior society, not a state society.
Not a state society.
So
Absolutely.
therefore, each individual clan would, when they buried somebody important, they'd put their weapons with them. I saw something bizarre the other day where someone said that the possibility is a lot of European bronze weapons um, have been buried because there was a glut of bronze, and in order to um, increase its rarity, to increase the value of people's existing bronze weapons, you buried your grandfather's bronze sword with him, and that was one out of the market. I find that maybe a little bit hard to believe, but it's an interesting theory. But yeah, but one of the things, I don't know whether it's apparent, if you haven't read some of the, say, Soviet era excavation reports and that, is that sometimes they find so many bronze um, weapons in areas. I think it was the late 1700s, early 1800s, they came up from the site of a battle and they mined it for bronze because of that tens of thousands of bronze arrowheads and swords.
Yes.
They actually set it up they didn't excavate it for archaeological purposes, they mined it for metal. because of
Yes.
the huge amount of metal there. So I think we've got to understand that they're a very metal-rich culture,
Yes.
comparably speaking to other areas. That's a
And
lovely helmet.
yes, a lovely helmet. Unbelievable. And Beat, look at these long blades.
Yeah. See, we generally associate long blades like that with the Sarmatians,
Yes.
Sauramatai in the early period. But the fact is that there was a continuum between the Sarmatians and the Scythians. You know, at one end you were more Scythian, at the other end you were more Sarmatian. So long swords turn up in the graves, and usually, if you have a long sword, you also have an Akanakis. It's not like you pick one or the other.
No, no.
It's like in the Caucasus in the 19th century, you'd have a Shashka and Kama
Yes.
or Kinjal, as it's in Russian. So the long sword and the short sword went together as a set. Well, Japanese did the same thing.
Yes.
But it's quite interesting to think that something like that, this combination of
Yes.
short sword and long sword, worn together in the same culture, obviously used for different purposes,
Yes.
but kept on. Because remember, in the Caucasus Mountains, there are a group of people speaking a language which is related to Sarmatian, which is related to Scythian. That is an old Iranian language,
Yes.
very old
Very old.
Iranian language. So, weirdly enough, some of these things survived a lot longer than you would expect. I mean, the last Scythians we know of were in the Crimea
Yes.
in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th centuries. I think there were some people that still could write the language in.
Mm.
I mean, they weren't a literate society, but when some groups adopted Christianity, they picked up writing as well. And there's traces of it. I mean, the Goths survived in the Crimea for
Yes.
centuries, long after they disappeared everywhere else.
Please take a
So,
look at this Akanakis handle. You see that?
yeah,
This same handle, you can see it in Persepolis.
yeah,
Same type, like
this
this,
is
also these grooves
really
inside.
classic. Yeah,
Unbelievable.
and the shape of the handguard at the bottom, often that kind of heart shape, kind of.
Yes.
It's not a heart shape, but you know what I mean.
Yes. Absolutely.
Um, it's more like the Spanish adaga shield, which is a
Yes.
double lobe, bilobed kind of shape.
Yes.
Um, it's very, very reminiscent when you look at it, but they still had variations. The antenna pommels, like the ones that do
Yes.
that,
Yes.
that's a kind of old Bronze Age thing,
Yes. Old
and
bronzes.
it's
Yes.
yeah, it's
Absolutely.
all through Western Europe
Yes.
and through Iran as well.
Yes. Absolutely.
So they've
And
got both. They
beautiful helmet, as you mentioned it before, protecting the cheek.
it's quite yeah, it's very sophisticated looking when you look at it. It's not like, say, a Greek helmet. I mean, there are Greek helmets that have the features, but the design is different. And the way it's put together with reinforcing strips that are riveted on, or possibly they're just cast in, it's hard to
Yes.
say. But it's a very advanced looking helmet. Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Yes.
Strong blade, double edged, good for stabbing, good for cutting.
Yes.
And
Oh,
it's really strong handle.
yes. Very, very strong.
So that they're putting power into anything they hit with this.
Yes. Unbelievable. So just let me just go ahead. When I was there was I think the largest collection of medieval and Renaissance European swords from these periods were exhibited on a temporary exhibition there. So I took these pictures of it. I mean, this person
Yeah,
is one of the richest, a very wealthy guy. So he has one of the
yeah,
hundreds of European swords, medieval and Renaissance, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
These are
guys,
these are
one thing to
rare and
say.
valuable.
One
Yeah,
thing to say for our viewers, excuse me, I'm just interrupting you.
yeah,
These
yeah.
are antiques, guys, huh? These collector of antique European weapons. They are not reproductions. Just wanted
Oh,
to
yeah, yeah.
mention that, Okay.
If you're really lucky, your reproduction is based on an antique like this.
Exactly. Important to
Ah,
say
yeah.
for European swords.
Isn't it interesting that the long knives, which are a kind of mesa
Mesa, yes,
are very similar to Khyber knives from
yes,
Afghanistan.
yes,
Uh, quite a good fighting knife,
yes,
not something that you want to meet in the hands of somebody who is both strong and skilled because they probably dice you up really quick.
yes,
But there's quite a few varieties of sword there.
yes, yes,
Um, I noticed that some of the straight swords have really pronounced flooring,
yes, yes, very
which
nice.
is always a sign of good work by the smith. They're really, really attractive swords.
Yes, very good condition.